I've spent most of my adult life moving to various places in the world, mainly because of the Army. And as a result, I like to have all my heavy tools and heavy equipment on wheels if I can, because it makes it, it's a whole lot nicer to be able to roll those things up directly to the moving truck instead of having to get a forklift in there. It's also nice just to be able to move stuff around the shop if you want to change your workspace or sweep or whatever. When I bought my planer joiner combo and my bandsaw, I bought them both in one fell swoop. I bought mobile bases with them, also made by Jet. And wow, what a complete waste of money those things were. Sorry, Jet, your power tools are awesome. I love them, but man, your mobile base is so... I was so offended by how absurdly bad these mobile bases were that I took an angle grinder and cut them up into pieces and threw them in the trash can. And, maybe that wasn't my most productive thing that I've ever done, but what can you do? I was angry. So I thought, I bet I could make bases better than these in my own shop. And I was right. I could make better bases, and so can you. Here's what I did. I have this piece of flat, there's my son digging for gold there. I had this piece of material ever since I was in weld school. It was sitting in the parking lot, rusting away. And finally I had the nerve to ask the weld director if I could have it. And he was like, take it. So it's been sitting in my shop waiting for me to figure out what to use it for all this time. This chop saw, while not essential for making these things, it really puts a nice finish on the end there. My method of stock preparation is, I used to use a flap disc, but I love these XT Pro fiber discs because they get all the rust and paint or whatever off of there without ruining the natural texture of the metal, which I love to keep intact if I can. This plate proved especially difficult to get that mill scale off, so I did switch to a flap disc. But it's okay because you won't even see it anyway. It's underneath the base of the drill press. Here I'm about to tack these up. I generally speaking use the settings listed above for welding when I'm using 045 wire. But for tacking, I'll generally turn it up because it reduces the spatter. Tacking produces a lot of spatter if you're not careful. But if you increase the heat, meaning the voltage, that can mitigate that. And now I'm making the pieces that connect the square tube together. I like to put curves in my work, as I'll explain here in a minute, but this bandsaw is simply a portaband that I mounted in a vise. Someday I'll get a proper stand for the bandsaw, or better yet, a dedicated vertical bandsaw for cutting curves in metal. I have one for cutting wood, but the RPMs are too fast for cutting metal. The heat would be too high. But for now, this will do. These are the basic pieces that make this up. Not that big a deal, really. I got the pieces of square tube, the flat piece here, and then these end pieces. And that's pretty much it, other than the pieces of angle that I'm using for the wheel mounts. And I could just square this off, put a rectangle here. I don't know, I like to have curves if I can in a piece because I think it makes it look more refined and less homemade, a little more professional. That's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bevel these mating surfaces to allow for better penetration when I weld these together. And then I'm going to grind them smooth. And ideally what I want is for these to look like it's one piece instead of a bunch of pieces glued together. So let's do that. Here I'm beveling these edges so I can really increase the penetration and therefore the strength of ultimately what's going to be welded. Just doing a test fit here, make sure these curves line up properly. I want the curve of the metal, the cross piece there, to line up properly with the square tube, the curve of the square tube. I could just weld this in a pass instead of zapping it like I'm doing now. In fact, that would be the proper way to do it if you were working on something important because of penetration and heat reasons. But I don't want to burn through either. I don't want the hassle of redoing that. And we're not talking about tons and tons of tensile strength required here. All I'm trying to do is fill that gap. And I can do the real welding once all the gaps are filled. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten to take the ground clamp from the table and to put it on the workpiece. And I go to just pull the trigger when I have the piece on the ground like I do now on the shop floor, and nothing happens. It's like, whew. How many times I gotta learn that lesson? Now I'm just spending some time refining these edges and getting all the spatter off. I don't like spatter on my work. It doesn't do anything to the structural integrity to leave spatter on there, but it just doesn't look right to me. I think it's worth your time and worth a craftsman's time to address the little details like that. And now I'm about to put the bevel on there. It's pretty interesting. This is, the angle grinder that I'm using here is a blunt force trauma tool, I would say. But it's amazing what a nice consistent bevel you can achieve just using an angle grinder and your eye and a steady hand. This is what we got so far. I put the bevel there on the edge with the flat bisque. My little intermittent welds there. I think it looks pretty decent. Looks like one piece, which is kind of what I was going for. The next step is I'm going to tack these on here. I got the casters, which will help me figure out the correct height that these need to sit at. I'm using this flat plate as a spacer to ensure that I get the proper distance with these pieces of angle. And now I'm just welding out these things that I tacked up. My son and I, my 18-year-old son and I, leaned this press down on its face and took the base off. And now I'm gonna mark out the holes for attaching the base to the mobile base. And I'm gonna drill and tap them. That's the next step. And the second to last step, the last step will be welding the casters on. I'm marking these holes with a Sharpie, and then I punch a hole there so that the drill bit has something to guide into. This will be a lot more convenient on the drill press. Man, I wish I had a drill press. I have a chart that helps me determine what the correct tap size is in relation to the drill bit. You drill the hole and then you use the proper tap size. And if you don't drill the proper hole size, then you're going to make the tap work too hard and it's going to break off. And that is a sucky scenario, let me tell you. All right, we got these holes drilled and tapped. And we're about to see, we'll put the drill press base, which is not attached to the drill press currently, on here, and we're going to see does it fit. I used to weld out a caster. I would weld the whole thing out, but that's problematic because, well, first of all, it's too much heat. You're putting too much heat in there, you're going to cause metal distortion, but also it'll burn up all the grease in the bearing portion, which you can just see there. It'll just burn it all away. And of course you can add more grease in there, but it's not necessary. You could just tack it and that's plenty of strength if you have enough tacks on there. So that's what I do now. These are also not necessary. They're metal D-rings that I can use to strap this down when I move. They also look really cool too, so that's really the main thing. I ran out of them, if you're wondering why I didn't put a fourth on there. Why is that guy putting 3 on there? Is there some strategic thing that he's thinking of that I'm just not smart enough to think of? Yes. Now I'm just putting the final touches on here before I prep it for paint. Making sure that there's no sharp edges. I like a nice bevel. The sun glints off of it, the light glints off of that bevel. It really just adds a nice finishing touch.
Oh my gosh, these dogs. Can't even bark right.
And now I'm using mineral spirits. You can use mineral spirits or acetone to clean any kind of oil or grease off there. You know, there's a lot of grease on there from the anti-spatter spray that I like to use when I'm welding with wire-fed processes. So you got to get that off there or the paint won't adhere. And this is lacquer. It's a clear lacquer. I really like, you know, you could paint this whatever color you want. I just like the look of bare metal. Unfortunately, bare metal rusts. So it's got to have some protective coat. So that's what I do. This drill press was awkward because there's not a lot to grab onto. So kind of a precarious thing. I wasn't sure how it would work out. With one of us or both of us being maimed. I almost did maim myself one time trying to get my bandsaw onto a mobile base that I made. I thought I was smart. I set up a roller system for rolling the thing on there because I didn't have anybody to help me. And it fell over. Luckily, my table saw took the brunt of the fall, but I just think back to how stupid that was.
Mosquito's stinging me. Can I let it go?
Yeah, let it go. Go. Get it. Kill that mosquito. That's the most important thing. All right. That's it. Thanks. Yeah. And now, just like that, I have a new functioning drill press that I can move around if I need to. Look at that.
And that's all there is to it. You may have noticed that this project consists of basic components. But the reality of things is that most things are made up of pretty basic components. And I think what separates extraordinary or even good, merely good things from the ordinary is refinement and attention to detail. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments. And in the meantime, it's time for you to go and make something awesome. Come here, little bird.
Look at you.
Look at this little kid.
Look at you. What are you getting ready to do, huh? Hey, you're small. You're so cute. Oh, so don't smile.